Judie Piscitello. I retired from the Stanislaus County Office of Education, and I'm currently the Executive Director for Stanislaus Partners in Education, which is a nonprofit that provides extra services for schools.
Hello, my name is Ellen Junn, President of California State University, Stanislaus.
Hola, hello. I'm Monica Vergara, and I am the Marketing and Community Relations Manager for La Perla Tapatía.
The women that have inspired me in my work are gracious, kind, curious, and strong. But they didn't get that way because everything worked out. They got that way because they had to handle issues and problems 1,000 times a day, 1,000 times a week, but they handle them. And they are my inspiration.
I think my inspiration comes from my parents and from my childhood experiences. My father was a central role in my figure in my life because he had 3 daughters, and as a man from South Korea, so when he realized he had 3 daughters, he started telling us that you can do anything a boy can do and better. So he was always a champion for his daughters to succeed in ways that he normally would have expected of a son. So that was my father. He was also a great believer in American democracy. He came to this country to get his graduate degree in political science, international relations. And my mom has always been a champion for the underserved and the underdogs in society, those who don't have access to resources. So together they help to form, a family ethos of service for the underserved and, strong women's rights, if you will. And I grew up born and raised in Illinois back in the early 60s, and that state was coming out of a segregationist state during the civil rights era, and I saw firsthand the kind of discrimination that people of color face, particularly African American, but also Asian American. And so my father moved us to Michigan after that because of the discrimination in part. And so I've always had a very, very strong commitment and foundational belief in the importance of treating all people equally, regardless of ethnicity, skin color, race, religion, etc. So those have been guiding posts in my, in my experience in my life. So I credit my parents and my family experiences, even as a young child.
As far as the inspiration in my work, the individuals who inspired me are my parents. My dad, he has been an entrepreneur, a business owner, and along with my mother for almost 40 years. Their work ethic and being able to start something of their own as immigrants from Colombia and Venezuela has been an immense inspiration for me in my work ethic and being able to accomplish and knowing what I'm capable of. And as well as what I currently do as a community relations manager, my inspiration has been my amazing friend, Judith Lanning. She was in a previous role. She just recently retired. She was a community relations stakeholder manager as well. And just her passion and what she loves to do in the community and really inspired me to really be a part of the community relations and have that as my career.
I'm a daughter of an immigrant. I'm a first-gen college graduate, but I did that on my own with 2 children while I worked. And I kind of call my college education as on-demand college. So I started out and I needed a teaching credential, but it was vocational. And then I needed a BA, and then I needed my admin degrees. So I actually got my BA walking across the stage holding a granddaughter. And I got my admin degrees in my late 50s. So it was a challenge. It was hard. I paid for it every bit myself, and it was well worth it.
So overcoming challenges, I think, is something that all people have the ability to do so, because no one's life is perfect. But what I would say is that I'm helped perhaps by a couple of things. One is I have an enormous capacity to work. In other words, I'm kind of a workaholic. And so whatever I do, I always try and go the nth degree because to me, being able to put in that effort of, especially for things that that you're passionate about, is a natural. So, as an example, temperamentally, I have a tendency to be more of an optimistic person. I'm realistic, but I tend to have a optimistic uh, perspective. And just as an example of that, when I was in high school as a senior, I was voted, among other things, the class optimist as a senior in high school. So that tendency to think of the glass half full rather than half empty is something that has always been with me my life, and that has helped me surmount challenges, because the next day there's always something good and positive to be seen, and to continue to moving forward rather than thinking pessimistically. So that temperamental quality, I think, has served me very well in times of crisis and challenge, to get up, dust oneself off, and keep going forward.
One of the major challenges that I want to share that I've overcome in my career and in my life in general has been the fear of failure. And the fear of failure is something that I, even as a young child to an adult, I've never been exposed to it by my parents, who inspired me from day one. And as I had mentioned, they've been my inspiration in work and in life. And because I never truly was exposed to it, and they were, to me, in my own eyes, always thriving, but I know being immigrants and starting their own business is something that I now, as an adult, know what those struggles are and then completely understand them. Now it's something that I know that has affected me throughout how I approach myself as a professional person. I really have this level of fear of failure, but knowing that at the same time that I can't live a life that I want if I don't go out there and try something new. And, without pain, there is no gain.
If you're involved in the community, thank you for your work. If you're not involved in the community, why not? There are so many opportunities for everyone. And I know that you could be thinking, well, it's easy for you, you're retired, but it's easy for everyone. And the community is what we make it, and we need you. So if you are working and have children and going to school and all of those things, and you can't think of anything you want to do to help, look around you. There are neighbors, there's neighbors' children, there's people that work with you. Reach a hand out, lift them up. Believe in them and make them believe in themselves. And then when you're ready, join an organization, come out, help us in the community. We need you. And speaking of community, I want to thank the Stanislaus County Commission of Women for this wonderful award. I'm honored to be part of all the women that's gone before me and those that will go after. And a special thanks to Adele Little for taking the time for the nomination.
My advice for serving community is, first and foremost, to understand how important it is to care and to build relationships with all members of your community, whether they be residents or visitors or different groups of all kinds. So it's important to me, when I first came to Turlock in Stanislaus County, as well as our branch campus in San Joaquin County, our Stockton campus, I've always tried to pay attention to who's in our community, which diverse groups are there, and how to build bridges and opportunities to get to know one another, to collaborate with one another, to partner with one another. So that is a very important part of, I think, any kind of community building effort, is to understand it's about relationships and honoring and validating and building those relationships throughout our region. And I'm also a big believer in building community, not just in our Central Valley, but across political lines, governmental, state, and national. So I try to sit on boards and other influential groups to bring the story of the Central Valley to those that potentially hold budgetary resources and interest in what we're doing here in the Central Valley that's so vital to the success of all of California.
I recommend embracing your uniqueness to be a part of the impact in community service, because that actually helps individuals also be empowered to find their own passion because they see that through you. Your uniqueness will exude that excitement of what you do, and people will see that it brings out also the authenticity of what you bring to the table.
My name is Hannah Renning. I'm here representing the League of Women Voters.
And I am Pat Portwood, representing the AAUW, or the American Association of University Women.
We both decided that we would work together on nominating Mary Giventer as the 2020 Woman of History. Mary Giventer was an exceptional woman. She was a quilter, both literally and figuratively. She was able to combine very many patches of activity into a harmonious and colorful whole, which expressed her devotion to the causes dear to her.
And Mary was passionate about equal rights for persons of all backgrounds and races, including about equal pay and job opportunities for women. She was a champion of justice and fairness, and that's why the League of Women Voters and AAUW organizations that have similar goals were so important to her. She was not afraid to take any leadership role, devoting herself to learning about society and political issues and passing on that knowledge to others. Her style, which you might think she was relaxed, she was always getting things done, and she didn't need the big fanfare. She just got it done.
That's right. Mary Giventer held a degree in physical therapy, and she worked at physical therapy all the years that she was active in AAUW and later in the League of Women Voters.
She began her leadership in AAUW as a president in 1978 through 79, and she worked all different positions, and including while she was working and raising children. So she was an active member of the Scholarship Fundraising Committee, which AAUW, we raise money for scholarships for young women going to college, and she devoted hours to that work. And some of her most beautiful quilts were donated for that purpose, to help raise that money. So whenever possible, Mary saw to it that AAUW and the League of Women Voters jointly sponsored informational forums and speakers. You know, Mary really was an inspiration to all of us. And in her passing, the board, the AAUW board, decided we need to carry on her memory. And so what we did was we voted and raised money and named a college scholarship that is now at Turlock High School in her honor. So one girl every year will be selected to represent out in the world and to be able to promote everything that Mary was all about. So we are very proud of that because she was a remarkable woman.
As her husband, Professor Larry Giventer, wrote after her passing, quote, Mary was committed and cared deeply about her family, her friends, her profession, the environment, equal rights, justice, and fairness, end of quote. Mary showed us how to be engaged, effective community volunteers.